Welcome to Life in the Music Business, a masterclass with Professor Pooch and your host, BACEFACE.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Life in the Music Business with Professor Pooch. Pooch, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. And by the way, we should let people know that there will not be a show on Christmas Day. So you'll be receiving this probably the Tuesday after Christmas if you watch us in correct set time or whatever, timing and stuff like that. But we have 20 episodes up, folks. There's plenty to go see. And also, and on, by the way, on Facebook, we never announced it really, but on Facebook, if you go to facebook.com/Poochcast, capital P, lowercase OOCH, capital CAST, one word, you'll get our Facebook page where we're putting up fresh information for you to help you along the way when you're not listening to a show.
Awesome. Cool. So, yeah, we have a lot going on, everybody. Thank you so much for liking, subscribing, and sharing all the stuff. We have new content coming out every day. We have a bunch of stuff on TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram. So, I mean, whatever platform you guys like the most, just follow us on there and just spread the word.
Sounds good to me. Oh, and we got a new thing coming out starting next year. In the beginning of next year, probably, I don't know what day of the, it's going to be a Wednesday. That we figured that part out. But we're going to do some in-depth podcasts where I'm just giving you pure in-depth on certain important topics that you should know about for different reasons. So you'll also be getting a Wednesday, a Poochcast, whatever you want to call it, of an offshoot of ours that it'll go deeper into a subject because we don't want to bore you with one subject all the way through. This is a master class. When the podcasts are more for educational purposes of purely going deep into a subject.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, there's a lot going on. And I guess this brings us to our first topic today, contracts.
Okay, yeah, that's where we left off last time and stuff like that. And, oh, God, contracts are just, things happen to me every day, and it's a lot of it's involved around contracts. Well, I had two situations where people wanted to license stuff to TV and film and stuff. One, a guy's friend, he says, Pooch, what do you do? This guy's friend's got a song in this movie that shows up almost throughout the movie, and he doesn't know how they even got it.
Wow.
So it wasn't licensed. You licensed stuff. And I just before we got on tonight, we shoot at midnight, folks, Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, this is recording time. I got another thing where somebody wants the video, to license and stuff, but he's doing it the right way. He's coming to me before and this is one of the major things about contracts. It's so hard to get out of messes once they're started. Please, with contracts, when you're working with anybody for any reason or any company, whatever, have the paperwork in place before you start. That's a major thing with contracts.
Of course. And I mean, that is the one thing I advise all my clients and everybody that I record and work with, mix for, all that type of stuff, is that it's easier to be preventative than it is to go back and try and collect everything. And it also helps you in the long run too, because I mean, once you take care of it now, you never have to worry about it again, especially when it comes to the contract work or setting up your companies, including your publishing, LLC, sole proprietorship, and whatever you guys choose along those lines. And you're able to actually make money. I mean, there's a lot of different streams of income, and basically two of which require actual companies to be formed.
Yeah, no, you're right on. And actually, what we should do, one of our shows, and you can make a note of this, is do a show of all the different possible income sources that creative people can have that are based around music and stuff like that. We'll just go down a list of things that people don't even think about. I mean, the obvious to me is, okay, you're a singer. Well, aren't you an actor also? I mean, this a lot of things are right for other people, right for commercials. They're still doing stuff even during the virus, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, but it all leads into something else. And what I want to cover today, we were started to cover some of the basics of law on Friday, Tuesday. Today's, yeah, I lose track of days. That's one of the weird things about this virus. People have no idea what day it is, you know, when you don't have a job, you know.
Yep.
It's not like, well, it's Monday morning, I got to get up. The alarm went off. You know, it doesn't work that way. I never know what day of the week it is. But what we did was we started on some just of the basics. Now, I'm going to bring up something at the basics, but at the same point in time, it's very important because it can tie up your life. Just like we were just talking about not doing a contract and then trying to backstep it and stuff like that and try to solve the problem. It gets real expensive, time's lost, you have a bunch of problems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What I want to bring up today, the word is term, T-E-R-M. Okay. Now, in contracts, there's two different kinds of terms. It should be this way, by the way, because I just did a management contract with somebody. The guy says, well, you know, he had written a contract for an artist I'm representing. And he says, why did you change just some of the T's to capital T's? It's to differentiate. When you see a capital on a word in a contract, it means more than you think it does. Now, the two kinds of terms in contract, okay, there's the terms of a contract. You know, everything that's in the contract, it'll say, you know, under the terms of this contract, so and so, so it's all the terms, all the information you've given on the contract. Now the capital T, T-E-R-M term, that's the length of time that a contract will last. And if you're not careful, it can be forever. And first of all, I'll jump into a couple things for protection purposes. And one is, and we discussed it in detail in one of our other episodes, there's the escape clause in case you're stuck in a contract and they're not doing what they're supposed to do or whatever. There's a, you know, escape clause. But there's also the escape clause, in short, you need to reach a specific goal within a specific period of time or you're out of the contract. So if it's a 3-year contract, but you don't want to wait 3 years if the manager isn't doing their job. So make it like 18 months. And if they don't get you this, it depends on what you want, a certain amount of money, a certain amount of placements of songs and films, whatever you want, whatever you guys decide on, then okay, that's, you know, an escape clause. And if it's not met in 18 months, it saves you 18 months of having to live out 3 years, okay? Now, another thing to keep in mind while we're going through this also is the difference between exclusive and non-exclusive. So if it's non-exclusive, exclusive means everything you're doing. If you're exclusive with a manager or record company, everything has to do with that management or record company. Even if you get stuff on your own, they get paid. That's exclusive. It covers everything. And then there's non-exclusive. It might be like a publisher has just 3 songs and you're not giving them all your songs. Okay, well, that's like non-exclusive. It's just for those 3 songs. So keep in mind non-exclusive and that stuff. But let's talk about term, the length of time. Now, with most things in life, usually you would think a length of time would be a year. Okay, you know, days, months, years. And in management contracts, in a lot of contracts, there's still years. So let's talk about years first. And then we're going to get into something a little more complicated when you deal with record companies.
Oh.
But let's look at years. Now, I got this contract, well, the way I like to do it, let's just say the way I like to write contracts with a manager and artist. I like an escape clause at 18 months. Otherwise, it's 3 years or 2 years, depends on whatever's between them that they want. What is normal? If you sign with most managers and stuff, it'll say 3 years, and then they can extend it for a couple more, terms, years, okay? And you would set it at years for the terms, I would say. But it usually will say the manager has the control of whether to continue these periods. So really, if it's 3 years and 2 option periods of a year each, that's a 5-year contract. Now, you don't want to be stuck with that. So,
Not at all.
especially with the wrong person, okay? By the way, an escape clause could be ongoing. You could have it 18 months and then 250,000 at the end of 2 years and 350,000 after 3 years. So you could have ongoing escape clauses. It's whatever 2 people agree to, okay? All right. So let's look at these. One thing that I would do, and I did automatically with this negotiation with this contract, was it was set for 2 years, but I wanted an 18-month escape clause. Okay. So it's typical of regular things. It's their lawyer and my lawyer, kind of thing. But it was my client, so I'm the lawyer in effect. So what happens is that, so I put in an 18-month escape clause, and it would go 2 years otherwise. And then the artist and the manager each have the option to go on or escape. And what that means in English is if the artist says, no, I've had enough, the contract's over, as long as it reached that 2-year period of time. So I sent this escape clause off for this, and it went off to New York to these attorneys. And it comes back, well, they said, all right, 18 months and stuff and things like that. But they wanted it the manager's option. Now I know what they're thinking is that, well, look, if we got you the major recording deal that this person wanted, they've earned their keep and it should go on. Now I'm at the step, I have to go back to my client and say, is this acceptable to you? Because, I work for somebody. When I do contracts for people, I give them my opinions and stuff like that, but it's their option. If that's like this person wants to go with a major label where directly, which is harder, and it's a problem and a lot of things that we'll not get into at this moment. But, there's those years and stuff. Something else in a management agreement that comes up all the time. Let's say the contract's over, it's 2 years. Let's just say. Now, what it says always in a contract is whatever happened during those 2 years extends beyond the 2 years. So let's say they put a recordings out and they wrote certain songs. Even after the contract's over, they're going to get paid for the stuff that was done during that term. Now, let's think about that for a second, folks. Let's say you're an artist and you're out of the contract, but you still have to pay that manager, but you want a new manager. Well, you can't give each manager 20%. That's 40%. Now, there is a compromise because the first one could say, well, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have gotten those things. And there's something for the second guy or gal or whomever saying, well, I'm the one pushing it now. So what do? And there's what is known as the sunset clause. Now, in English, what it is. You can't keep paying both people 20%. That's for sure. So I'll give you an example of a sunset clause. Let's say the contract's over. Now, anything that happened during the contract that's got to extend, I make it like the first 2 years, the manager only gets 15%. The second 2 years only gets 7.5%. I'm using examples. And the third year they get 5% or whatever. And then after that, it's down to 0. So they each get something out of it. Now, that has to do with years and stuff. But something else I want to tie with this before we get into the other thing is that artists have to learn, no matter what kind of contract, whether it's a manager or record company contract. I'm using artists as an example, or any creative person. People think they're signing the contract. When they're looking at the contract, they think of today, where they're at today. They're going to give you, say, $60,000. Wow, $60,000 today. But I don't think about $60,000 today. Yes, I'm aware of it. But what am I thinking is, well, what happens in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? You got to think of this stuff. Well, you think this number is good now, and you wonder, well, how come the record company or whomever keeps making more and more money each year and I'm not getting any more? You got to think of that during a contract, even the first time, even though you're dealing with your first manager, like we were talking about the sunset clause to the second manager. When you're signing with the first manager, you got to be thinking about what it's going to be like with manager number 2 and manager number 3. That may or may not occur, but you got to think about it. But that's why people hire me or an entertainment attorney who should be thinking about the long-term mental and career health of the individual.
Yeah, and that's super important. I mean, I feel like that's the number one thing, or one of the top things, I should say, that mean the most in a contract, especially like the term in being stuck in something for that long could really hurt your entire career. Because I mean, there's some famous artists, actually, we're not going to say any names, but similar fashion happened to them where they were put on a tour. They signed a contract and they were put on a tour for 10 years, but they had no show dates. So they were locked into that contract and not being able to do anything at all. So, I mean, it's...
Boy, that's extreme. But yeah, I mean, you got to think of it that way. By the way, the safest thing to do is to sign in California, because contracts in California, there's a personal contracts law. It was put in for film, but it works for music too. No personal services contract can last more than 7 years. And I've seen fights between major people where they say, no, we want to go under New York laws. No, we're going under California laws. Oh, man, it gets insane. That's why I love being independent.
Yeah.
You know, and I try to keep people independent. You don't have to go through that disaster because you have control of everything. You know, if you screw up, it's you. At least it's not somebody else. But what you brought up was very important, is that let's say you're in a mess for 3 to 5 years. I mean, you're wasting time, you're wasting money. You're at a certain age you want to be at when you're performing. You don't want to, you know, think that you're going to be really old, you're not going to be able to do it. Even though nowadays with the internet, I have clients that are going out for the first time that are 70 years of age.
Wow.
Isn't that insane? One's actually 73. And and I get people of all ages, because with the internet, you can do things, you know, they retire from the regular work. Hey, man, I'm going to get into music. You know, I don't want to just sit home and do nothing. I've always wanted to do music. And they're doing. You can be any age nowadays. All you need is that niche audience. That's another topic we'll get into. So, yeah, I mean, that's a great thing. And you see it with older musicians that were big at one time. In the old days, that was it. That was their career. Maybe they go on tour here and there. But now they can keep putting out stuff and push it themselves.
Of course. And I think another thing to reiterate here is something you usually say a lot, is that you're not signing with the piece of paper. You are signing with the person that gave you the piece of paper. So you have to be careful that just because somebody, I mean, like a lot of people change over time. So you have to make sure that the person that you want, that you're going into a contract with, I mean, you definitely don't want to overthink it, but you also want to be looking in your best interest and say, hey, listen, I'm going to, just like you would invest into a company, you're going to do research. So you have to look at it like it's your own company and you're investing in yourself. So you have to do research on the people that you're bringing into your organization, because if you don't, then you could end up with a loose cannon and be in contract with them for 7 years.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, and to me, that's why people shouldn't rush into contracts. I mean, I couldn't believe this manager wanted to sign this artist after a day or two. I'm not going to sign anybody. Well, first of all, I don't sign people, but to myself or anything. But if I was going to sign people, I want to get to know them a little over a period of time and see how they react to different kinds of situations. Can they handle it or not? I think I mentioned in one of our conversations, what I would do is bring over somebody well-known, friend of mine or whatever, and see how they react under that. Are they going to get nervous? Or are they going to get really crazy? Or are they just going to be themselves? And I want them to just be themselves. If they're just themselves and the star or whomever is just being themselves, it goes great. Nobody needs to press to be nervous. They're people. Everybody's a person, you know. When they come over to the Pooch Palace, it's just we're getting together. You know, they're people. That's all.
Yeah,
And people like that.
and that's the best way that I've always met people. I mean, working in New York, I ran into a lot of people, believe it or not. But it was always like you always see them on the media and all this stuff, and they're always portrayed as like major people and all this stuff. And then you're standing next to them, and you look over, and it's like, oh, I know you. Like I've known you my entire life, just like from their public personality. But like they're just normal people, and that's how they like to be treated. I've met people that.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's the way they want to be treated. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like I've met people before that have been, you know, I mean, number one selling record is on the radio, and they're standing next to me, and I'm like, "Oh, what's up, man? I'm Johnny BACEFACE." They're like, "Oh, what's going on, man? I'm so and so," and then like the next day I see them on like on TV or wherever I see them, and it's just like it's just so funny to me. It's just like everybody's the same. We all have to eat. We all have to do the basic essentials of life. It's just they are held at such a different level because of their
And it's pressure on them.
yeah.
There's a lot of pressure. They always feel they're on camera or whatever. And a lot of the artists can't handle that, you know, and it's hard. You'll find a lot of major artists with anxiety problems and stuff like that.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, imagine you going out and then having to be chased down every time or have to fight a paparazzi to get them away from you so that you can go walk your dog or take your child to school or whatever. I mean, it's a real security issue.
I don't want to have a bunch of bodyguards around me all the time.
Oh.
I would never, I need to be alone to work.
Yeah.
You know, you're like that too. I mean, you know, to really concentrate without a bunch of people, you know, around, you know, I don't need that. You know, wouldn't want that kind of a life. That's why my thing is find something you love to do. Yes, if it's music, great, but just earn a comfortable living. If you want to make big money and you can handle all the crazy people around you, fine. But remember to go and escape once in a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Find some way. Picture being the president or people like that where they have Secret Service no matter where they go.
Mm-hmm. Armored trucks.
They go to the bathroom. There's secrets. Oh my God!
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Okay, now the other part about the term that I wanted to bring in is with record companies, it's not about years. It's about periods of time. And there's option periods of time. Now, why is this? I'll just quickly, back in I guess it was 83 or 1984 or whatever, Olivia Newton-John was signed to, I believe it was MCA Records. And she says, I'm leaving. It's been 5 years. And they said, no, you owe us 2 albums. And she says, 5 years. They said 2 albums, went to court, and she won. Now, record companies are not going to stand for that. So they got rid of the word years and they start using option periods. Now, with option periods, and by the way, if it keeps going with option periods, just like with years and there's no ending, I mean, it could be for life. You don't want that kind of situation. But with option years, you see, well, instead of 5 years, it's just 5 9-month periods of time. That's only 45 months. That's less than 5 years. I love it. But it doesn't work that way. They're going to say first, upon delivery of an album, and of course you look up the capital D and find out delivery means acceptable to them that it's delivered. They like it, in other words. that first 9-month period, even though you signed it 6 months ago, the period of time that's counting starts from the time you hand them in and they accept that album. So you figure, okay, say it takes, I'm going to make up numbers, 3 months to record the album, let's just say. They then have 9 months to decide whether they either want to go to the next option period or extend that option period for a second album. So what you think is 3 years and then 9 months, okay, it's a year, okay. But at that point, they decide before that, the end of the 12th month, that they're going to extend it. They're going to say, oh, we're extending it for a second album. This first period is being extended for one more album. You only can do one. And so it takes you 3 months in the studio, and 9 months later, all of a sudden that what you thought would have been 9 months is 2 years, and 5 of them is 10 years. You want to limit it, you can limit it. Usually to a point, they're going to say live albums don't count. You got to really read the fine print of the length of terms because it can last forever.
Yeah.
And think of these, how many artists do you know that put out an album and then you don't hear an album from them for 2 years? Well, they're just going into the next period of time. That's why it's so important, to have me or an entertainment attorney to really make sure that this length of time, and by the way, we were also talking about this person saying, well, how come I'm making the same amount of money when I started and you're making more and more? Well, you have the right in a contract to say, all right, if you keep me for the second option period, I want another $120,000 up front. And for the third period of time, I want $240,000. And you know what the funny part about this whole thing? The record company's going to say, okay, because they can drop you anytime they want. If they say you're not going to be worth that $240,000 or whatever, whatever number, they're just going to drop you, and that's that. They have nothing to lose, but you got to ask for this stuff beforehand.
Of course.
And
can't be chasing your coattail.
No. Yeah, and the point is that's why I think 10 years in advance, because things can happen. And so we covered the contract term. So, which is very important because it's your life that's being held along this period of time. So we've covered that, and I'm sure we're at our time limit at this point. So do you have anything else to add, Mr. BACEFACE?
Everybody, I hope you had a good holiday, and New Year's around the corner. So we're planning for that. Keep subscribing, liking, sharing. Follow us for our content. We're releasing all types of small little snippets and different things to be able to get everybody involved in creating our newsletter. And we have a lot of stuff in the works that are going to really get you guys involved, and it's going to really set the new year off right. So stay tuned.
Yeah, I mean, our thing is, look, whatever happened in 2000, I mean, I don't know when you're going to see this, but whatever happened in, 2020, it's a crazy year. I mean, but good or bad, it's gone. It's dead and gone. But you have 2021 to conquer, and we're going to try to help you. Well, we're not going to try. We're going to do it. We're going to help you conquer the next year and help you to create a new normal that you're happy with. So I will then close it off with tune in for the next episode. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Tune in for the next episode.